Okay, well, Gcmaf is the body's way of curing cancer. It was discovered in the human body by scientists in the 1980s. And Parliament in England has concealed it with the MHRA and the big pharmaceutical companies for 25 years, in which time 2 million people have died unnecessarily. So the MHRA is supposed, and the FDA in America, is supposed to protect us from the big pharmaceutical companies, their $1.3 trillion income, and their drugs, many of which kill. Both the FDA and the MHRA have big pharmaceutical company directors on the board, and what they actually do is protect the profits of the big pharmaceutical companies at the expense of 200,000 British lives a year for the MHRA. And they do that by licensing drugs that kill. They kill 80,000 that way, and they prevent the British people from accessing safe natural treatments that work, like Gcmaf. There's another 120,000 dead. So they kill 200,000 every year, and they are very proud of that statistic.
I don't understand.
What don't you understand? I found a cure for the fucking plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost.
Chemotherapy fails 97% of the time.
Yeah.
The Journal of Clinical Oncology did a study of 71,000 cancer cases back in 2004, and they concluded that chemotherapy was successful in 2.3% of cases.
Yeah.
In our Lausanne clinic, Switzerland, we were saving 75% of terminal stage 4 cancer patients. And in our last clinic, the Guernsey clinic, we were saving 89% of terminal stage 4 cancer patients. So we got better every year until the MHRA closed us down, because the MHRA is busy protecting the profits of the big pharmaceutical companies. They take 200 billion out of chemotherapy, and the last thing they want to see happen is Gcmaf come along and cure everyone of cancer.
Yeah.
Well, I very foolishly went to an Ian R. Crane lecture at Ghent University, and he said that Gcmaf is the cure for cancer. Put up your hands, all who've heard of it. Not one hand went up. If I hadn't gone to that lecture, I'd have had a normal life and been quite happy. But I went home, stuck it into Google, and there it was. Even in July 2009, there were 32 research papers by 70 scientists from 5 nations on the American National Library of Medicine, or PubMed. And it was completely obvious from the research papers that this is the cure for cancer.
Yeah.
And it should have been out in the public, but no. The big pharmaceutical companies, the MHRA and their predecessors, and the FDA have concealed it deliberately for 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Parliament in England is responsible for that, because Parliament created the MHRA and has given them carte blanche to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And that includes, they wanted a 26-year prison sentence for me. And this is why all new treatments live in a climate of fear. They're all scared stiff of getting the 26-year sentence that the MHRA wanted for me. So every new treatment lives in a climate of fear of the MHRA, and that's supported by Parliament.
Today's sentencing marks the culmination of a complex 3-year investigation by the MHRA to protect public health. Our investigation team have worked tirelessly to bring David Noakes to justice, who put public health at risk through the unlicensed sale of Gcmaf products.
Gcmaf is a product made from human blood sold by a Guernsey-based company called Immunobiotech, which is owned by David Noakes. Gcmaf has been claimed as a miracle cure for anything from cancer to HIV to severe acne. However, it has not been subjected to any clinical trials, and there is no scientific basis for these claims. In January 2015, the Guernsey authorities raised concerns about this product with the MHRA, and we inspected the company's production site in Cambridgeshire. We seized around 10,000 vials of the product to an approximate value of £5.5 million. Our inspection determined that unlicensed manufacturing was taking place, the site did not meet the good manufacturing practice standards, and the material used to produce the medicine was not suitable for human use. Following our inspection, we alerted people to the risks of buying and using Gcmaf. Following further investigation, David Noakes was listed as being wanted by the MHRA. Noakes had relocated his business to France, but in February 2017, following a tip-off, he was arrested by Dorset police, having flown into Bournemouth Airport in his own private aircraft from Cherbourg in France. He was interviewed under caution and subsequently charged with a number of offences. The risk posed to public health in this case was potentially huge, as we were dealing with an unlicensed medicine made in an unlicensed facility. These products have not been tested for quality, safety or effectiveness, and it's strongly advised that people seek advice from a medical professional before using any related products.
Our advice is, if you are buying medicines online, make sure you buy from a site that is properly regulated. We advise anyone needing medical treatment to seek professional medical advice and not to buy medicines from unauthorised sources. Patient safety is our highest priority, and we will continue to track down and prosecute criminals who exploit public health for their own gain.
No. This is the big pharma lobby spend. They bribe a lot of people to go on the web and attack anything that attacks their income. And so-called charities like Cancer Research UK rubbishes Gcmaf. They have a page on their website. Absolute lies. 10 lies about Gcmaf. They have big pharmaceutical company directors on the board as well. And they kill scores of thousands of people every year by driving them into the poison of chemotherapy.
Patient safety is our highest priority.
And then in Belgium, there's the so-called anti-cancer fund. They are part of the big pharma lobby as well. And there are thousands of little individuals as well. And they took down 2 Yamamoto papers with false science. and they have a big pharma director on the board as well. And on their website, they're driving everyone into the poison of chemotherapy.
Patient safety is our highest priority.
They're all building up profits for chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So oncologists, 75% of oncologists, and they're asked every year, say there's no way they would ever take chemotherapy because it usually shortens your life, and half of the people who take chemotherapy don't die of the cancer, they die of the chemotherapy. So the oncologists are very wise to never take it themselves, but they're quite happy to poison the ordinary man on the street.
We seized around 10,000 vials of the product to an approximate value of £5.5 million.
Big Pharma charges the NHS in England £40,000 a round for chemotherapy on average. Gcmaf is 380 quid. Chemotherapy is £40,000 a round. If you go to YouTube and search Teri Davis Newman, Teridavis Newman, her sister, who was killed by chemotherapy, her esophagus ruptured as a result of chemo-induced vomiting.
Patient safety is our highest priority.
She spent over $700,000 on chemotherapy, but her big sister refused to take chemotherapy, found us. She was supposed to die of HGSC, peritoneal ovarian cancer. There are no survivors, except Teri Davis Newman. She was supposed to die in November 2016, and only today she's bothering me on emails. She's still very, very fit and well.
My name is Teri Davis Newman. I'm a real person. You can Google me. My doctors predicted I would die in November 2016 of terminal stage 4 ovarian cancer, specifically high-grade serous carcinoma of the ovaries and uterus. It degraded and recurred as peritoneal carcinomatosis, and this cancer has no survivors. It doubles in size every 6 weeks. My sister and I both carried the BRCA1 gene, and she died with the same cancer on the 18th of November of 2015, 90 days before I was diagnosed. It was the chemotherapy, which they billed her more than $700,000 to pay for, that killed her from 11 months after her diagnosis. This was after she was horribly mutilated with a double radical mastectomy and a hysterectomy. She bled to death in front of both of my elderly parents when her esophagus ruptured from chemo-induced vomiting. 50% of the people who have cancer die from the chemotherapy, not the cancer. There are over 100 specific research papers that say peritoneal carcinomatosis following high-grade serous carcinoma is not helped or even affected by chemotherapy, and that there's no point to it other than that chemotherapy is a huge moneymaker for the oncologist. My sister was murdered for profit. The doctors knew the chemo would kill her, and they knew it wouldn't help her, and that didn't stop them. Now in March 2017, I have MRI scans that continue to say that my cancer is being killed off. I would have a belly full of cancer and would have died by now if I'd allowed myself to be chemoed. I'm fit as a fiddle, and if I'd obeyed the dozen doctors who tried to force me, they did everything but hold a gun to my head. If I had listened to them, I would be dead as a doornail. The doctors, who are amazed that I am still alive, are still trying to force me to have chemotherapy. To me, immunobiotech are angels. I owe them and David Noakes my life. There are no words I can ever express that will thank them enough for what they have done for me and their generosity. If I die because of what Big Pharma and the MHRA have done, I will die cursing them for causing my death just to protect their profits. They are the scum of the earth and deserve the fate that God will have in store for their members. They promote the murder of chemotherapy, or the murder by chemotherapy, of over 1 million people a year with their billion-dollar poison. I ran for Congress in 2010 in Illinois. I'm visible on the web. My website for my cure is www.gcmafcancercure.com, and you can see my video on Facebook. Feel free to contact me with any questions. Teri, with one R, T-E-R-I, Davis Newman, N-E-W-M-A-N, at AOL.com. Teri Davis Newman at AOL.com.
It bankrupted me before I started, but I just resolved that very day when I went home and read it in Google after listening to Ian R. Crane. I read it in Google, decided, right, I'm giving up the EU dictatorship. I ran for the leadership of the UK Independence Party, and I lost to a complete unknown, Mr. Nigel Farage, and who actually is a really great guy. I think a lot of him. And I just decided to give up the EU dictatorship and spend the rest of my life saving people from cancer. Mm-hmm. And even now, my aim is to get Gcmaf into the NHS, where it will save 120,000 lives a year. Well, we don't need money. I mean, you know, we never had any external investment.
Okay.
We were charging 1% the cost of chemotherapy. We were giving 25% away for nothing. And we still made enough money to pay for 4 brilliant scientists, 7 doctors, 2 ultrasound specialists, 4 nurses, an accountant who kept all our taxes up to date, and office staff. And then run a laboratory, and then run distribution, which was pretty expensive. And we ran 2 clinics, one in Lausanne, Switzerland, and one in Guernsey. And we were able to do all that on 1% of what the chemotherapy companies make. They are in it for massive super profits. We only needed enough money to do a bit more than break even, because you have to make a profit or you go out of business. That's been in use for 20 years. Yamamoto was giving it to patients, about 500 patients, 20 years ago. So it doesn't actually need licensing. But the MHRA has used European laws. There are 3,000 European laws illegally on the British statute book, and they used 3 of them to take me down. So they used the medicines laws because I had broken a rule. Now, you can't be done under common law or the British Constitution for breaking a rule. There has to be damage or harm done. Out of 11,500 patients, we did no harm. So the second law is the European Union's Proceeds of Crime Act 2003, where they steal everything that you have. And in prison, there are a lot of innocent people in prison where they arrest the husband and the wife. They let the wife go as long as the husband pleads guilty to a crime he didn't commit. They lock him up for 4 to 7 years and then steal his bank accounts and his house under the Proceeds of Crime Act, which gives the court, the judge, the prosecutor, and the police 50% of the proceeds. So criminality is actually written into the law, and the courts are acting criminally using EU law. And the third EU law they got us under is the extradition law. We are being extradited to France. So the MHRA very cleverly wanted a 14-year sentence in England, and then they rang up Oakalesque, their even more corrupt French opposite numbers, and they got the evil Judge Godaud to ask for a 12-year sentence on top. And he very cleverly came up with 9 fraudulent charges, all invented out of his own mind. There's no evidence whatsoever because we're innocent of all of them. But when you're dealing with a judge in France, you're going to jail. There's no human rights worth talking about in France. And he is a very dangerous man. We have got pages and pages of pure lies from him. And Judge Supperstone and Judge Crane in the Westminster Court and the High Court both okayed our extradition to France, even though the evidence was obviously fraudulent, didn't exist. And of course, the jurisdiction is England. We had 27 staff in England. We had 1 member of staff part-time in France. Everything happened in England. Bugger all happened in France. So the case should remain in England. And the fact that it was tried in England should be a double jeopardy thing. You can't be tried twice for the same crime in Europe. But the courts don't obey the law. They just make the law whatever they want. They can rule any way they like. They can break the law as often as they want to. And this is why every treatment, every new treatment lives in a climate of fear. Everyone is scared stiff in the new treatment world of getting my 26-year sentence. Scared stiff. Well, shall I just tell you a bit about Gcmaf? Okay, so it's 1% of the cost of chemotherapy. It has no side effects, and it's 40 times as powerful. So no one's ever going to want to take chemotherapy if they've got a chance of taking Gcmaf. I mean, Gcmaf, you just get better. No side effects. Gcmaf has 21 fabulous effects in the body. Yes, it rebuilds the immune system. Yes, it activates macrophages to eat cancer cells. But it also stops the building of arteries into tumors. And once arteries are stopped, angiogenesis, yes. And it also stops secondaries or metastases. So, you know, you get the primary, and then you normally get secondaries. And it's the secondaries that kill you. But Gcmaf stops secondaries. So when a doctor gives you a biopsy, they break open tumor cells which float around your body. You can get secondaries. When a surgeon cuts, he breaks open cancer cells which can go around the body and cause secondaries. When you go for a mammogram, they squeeze your breast so hard they go black sometimes, and they break open cancer cells and they become secondaries. So you need to be on Gcmaf before you have any of those three. But doctors haven't got a bloody clue. Yeah, but it does as much damage as it does good because it attacks all the normal cells as well. You can lose eyes, you can lose your organs, and you can die of it. I mean, this is a very dangerous poison, chemotherapy.
Well, like you
we
said
made
earlier.
pure Gcmaf molecules, and we found it was 25%. We had two laboratories. The University of Florence had Professor Marco Ruggiero, MD, in charge, and he had 10 PhDs working for him in the laboratories. And we had our laboratories. And Professor Marco Ruggiero, MD, eventually left the University of Florence. He is the top Gcmaf scientist in the world and worked for us. And we worked out that oleic acid is very essential for Gcmaf. So we combined it with it, and it made Gcmaf 25% more powerful. So we had 9,000 fabulous successes, 800 people saved from terminal stage 4 cancer, and successes with 50 other diseases. So we had the clinic in Lausanne where we were getting the results from.
Yep.
So we wrote scientific research papers on the results.
Yep.
And I'll just take you through 3 interesting cases. Firstly, Gcmaf is a slam dunk for pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is the one that you're told you're going to die in 8 weeks, and 8 weeks you're dead.
Yep.
Gcmaf always brings you back from pancreatic cancer. Pretty well no one went to Gcmaf right away. They pretty well all took chemo first, and when they were terminal stage 4 with a limited lifetime, and they realized their doctors and oncologists had been lying to them, only then would they come to us.
Doctor, can we talk about cancer a little bit? Various types out there. What are some of the things that you've seen in terms of your patients, and what some of the things that you've been able to do?
A better thing to talk about in relationship to, well, I will talk about that, right? A better thing to talk about, however, is the relationship between profits and cancer in the United States. There was a study that was published, I believe it was in 1994. It was a 12-year program, 12-year study. They looked at adults who had developed cancer as an adult, not childhood cancer, but adult cancer, right? And this is the main types of cancer that we get here in the United States. They did a meta-analysis of these people all around the world who developed cancer as adults for 12 years and were treated with chemo. And they looked at the results. And they published the results in the Journal of Clinical Oncology. And the results? 97% of the time, chemotherapy does not work. 97% of the time, it doesn't work. So why is it still used? It's one reason and one reason only: money. If you go to a medical doctor, an MD, with a sinus infection, and that doctor prescribes an antibiotic, he gets no financial kickback. Now, if he prescribes 5,000, of that antibiotic in 1 month, the drug company that makes it might send him to Cancun for a conference, right? Mm-hmm. But he gets no direct remuneration. It's not with chemotherapeutic drugs, it's different. Chemotherapeutic drugs are the only classification of drugs that the prescribing doctor gets a direct cut of. So if your doctor prescribes chemotherapy for you, here's how it goes, more or less. The doctor buys it from the pharmaceutical company for $5,000, sells it to the patient for $12,000, insurance pays $9,000, and the doctor pockets the $4,000 difference. And there ought to be a law. The only reason chemotherapy is used is because doctors make money from it. Period. It doesn't work 97% of the time. If Ford Motor Company made an automobile that exploded 97% of the time, would they still be in business? No. This is the tip of the iceberg of the control that the pharmaceutical industry has on us. Most people have no idea of this at all. Now, I wrote a book. It's called The MD Emperor Has No Clothes, right? In my book, I have a bulleted list of 10 questions that every cancer patient should ask their doctor. 10 questions. I've had patients kicked out, literally, kicked out of the oncologist's office because the doctor was PO'd that the patient was asking him these questions. And these are just common sense questions. Cancer treatment in the United States, we have lost the war on cancer. We have lost the war on cancer. Why? Because cancer is not a reductionistic phenomenon. Cancer is a holistic phenomenon. And when you try to bring a reductionistic methodology like drugs and surgery to bear on a holistic phenomenon, you will completely miss the boat each and every time. You cannot do it. Medical doctors are like colorblind art critics. They can see that that's a boat. They can see the black and white outline, but they're completely blind to all of the colors and textures that make up the substance of the thing. It's no difference with cancer. The reason that people get cancer in the United States and the reason that we have completely lousy outcomes is because medical doctors are driving the research bus. When women get together and do a 5K run for breast cancer, all of that money, do you think any of that money goes to nutritional research? Do you think any of that money goes to homeopathic research or acupuncture or traditional Chinese medicine or naturopathic research? No. All of it goes to drugs and surgery, which do not work. Now, why aren't those women running for selenium? If every girl in this country took 200 micrograms of selenium, in one generation we'd eliminate breast cancer by 82%. That's a big number. Why aren't we doing that? Because medicine in the United States is a for-profit industry, and most people are completely unaware of this, and most people bow down to the altar of MD-directed high-tech medicine at their own demise.
Well, any oncogene has never been turned off. So a mutated gene can become an oncogene, a cancer gene, and that pours cancer into your body for the rest of your short life. So a woman went to Kareji Hospital, 60 years old, and she had terminal stage 4 breast cancer, which had invaded her pectoral muscle, so it couldn't be operated on. And she also had the HER2 oncogene, so she was doubly dead. She had a very short life expectancy. So she went to our Lausanne clinic and took Golaic for 3 weeks, went back to Correggi Hospital, and the doctors were amazed that the tumour had shrunk, and enormously, and surrounded itself with pus and come out of the pectoral muscle. Now, Gcmaf always does that. There's nothing to be surprised about. So they just plucked it out.
Yeah.
And then they tested her for the HER2 oncogene again. And they were utterly stunned to find out that it was turned off. So 4 of their doctors signed it into their archives, the before and after results, the biopsies, and we wrote it up in 3 scientific research papers. So we wrote 33 scientific research papers, half of which are on the American National Library of Medicine, and half of the 150 scientific research papers written by the 300 scientists are also on the American National Library of Medicine, which is the top resource in the entire world. Well, there are over 1,100 on Google Scholar, but the top tier is the peer-reviewed scientific research papers in the top scientific journals in the world. And all our 33 are in the top scientific journals in the world. And then the tier above that is the American National Library of Medicine, and half of all the Gcmaf papers are on that. The Swiss police in Lausanne, Procurator Eric Mahmoud closed down our clinic and put out to the press that 5 people had died in the clinic. No one ever died in our clinic. No one has ever died in the world from Gcmaf. So Jeffrey Bradstreet was shot dead by an assassin because he had treated 2,000 kids for autism. And he started off getting 15% success with our normal Gcmaf. He got 25% success with our Golaic in 2 to 6 months. And then at the end, we had taught him how to use ultrasound to drive the Gcmaf across the blood-brain barrier. He was getting success with 60% of patients. That's to say, he was taking non-verbal, sometimes violent, autistic kids, making them verbal and sending them back to normal school in 1 week. Gcmaf is made by 5 billion people. 1 billion people can't make it. And the reason for that is because they have cancer or one of 50 diseases which sends out a poison called nagalase, which prevents Gcmaf being made in your body. And if you've got cancer, you'll be dead in a few years. So we put the Gcmaf back that they can no longer make, and we have to keep giving to them twice a week until the disease or cancer is gone. And then the nagalase is also gone, and their own Gcmaf starts back up again, and they don't need ours anymore. Yeah, if you've got rid of the disease, if the Gcmaf has got rid of it, you have to wait until the disease is gone, and then your own Gcmaf will start up again.
Now,
Right, so vitamin D binding protein transports vitamin D about the body. It's also called globulin, it's also called GC protein. And Gcmaf is vitamin D binding protein with 2 sugar molecules missing. And they're taken away by B cells and T cells in the immune system, and 3% of your blood, which is vitamin D binding protein, becomes just 1/1000th of it becomes Gcmaf. So we were giving people 1/1000th of a gram of Gcmaf. The MHRA and the FDA don't even want you to have 1/1000th of your own Gcmaf. They are so determined to kill you, they will not even let you have 1/1000th of a gram of Gcmaf. But 9 out of 10 people won't take it. You offer Gcmaf to someone on chemotherapy, 9 out of 10 people point blank refuse to take it, right up to the time where they kick the bucket. And even then, they won't take it. I mean, the first thing is, if you've got cancer, give up sugar, because sugar is the only thing the cancer eats. And carbohydrates become sugar in the body. So you've got to give up carbohydrates and sugar. And no oncologist will tell you that. When you ask them, can I do anything with diet? They lie to you and say, no, there's nothing you can do. There is. So the next point is, you need 20,000 IU of vitamin D a day. Now, if you're taking Gcmaf, your body expects normal levels of 60 nanograms per milliliter of vitamin D in your body. But people with cancer only have about 10 to 20. But if you take 20,000 IU a day, it's as though you have normal vitamin D levels, and the Gcmaf is 2.5 times as powerful. So you've got to take vitamin D, whether you're on Gcmaf or not. Yeah. So no sugar, no carbs, take vitamin D. There's been 102 doctors murdered since Dr. Bradstreet. It's one a week. And this is the way Big Pharma is terrorizing doctors to do as they're told. Because all of these doctors are holistic doctors who don't use pharmaceutical drugs. Yeah. This is how they control them. Yeah, well, this is a medical mafia. And the head of the mafia in America is the Food and Drug Administration, and the head of the mafia in England is the MHRA. They control all the killing. Well, I was supposed to spend 4 months in Wandsworth Prison. I actually spent 5 months because they couldn't be bothered to sign my release paperwork. And I have court cases going all the time. There was another one last week that I didn't know about. I have court cases under the Proceeds of Crime Act. So the fact that they closed all my bank accounts 4 years ago, and I haven't even had a credit card since, isn't enough. They want to make absolutely sure I am completely penniless and stripped of everything. So there's still more court cases to go for that. And then there's a court case on the 27th of February next year, where they want to extradite me. And the British courts despise English people, and they can't get rid of them fast enough to throw them onto a corrupt foreign nation. They just love getting rid of us.
Patient safety is our highest priority.
Lynn is largely responsible for the big improvements we have made in treatment. She's the one that runs our clinics, and she's the one that finds the new protocols. So, for example, she took us from 5% success with terminal stage 4 cancer to 77%. And she was in the NHS for 30 years, and now she's spent 6 years with us.
I'd like to introduce you to my friend Lynn Tyre. Lynn is a UK state-registered biomedical scientist, and she worked in the UK National Health Service for 35 years.
Linda Thyre is in a hell of a state. You know, she's stressed out by this completely fraudulent extradition rate. I mean, so she's actually completely innocent of all charges, but they still want to put her down for a 12 years jail sentence. And the law is irrelevant. The judges always get what they want. Yeah. To go to the website www.mhracorrupt.st, mhracorrupt.st. Okay. Click Parliament Guilty, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and send out the 2 letters. One to your congressman or MP if it's England, and one to your local paper. Yeah, about 100,000 people have seen these Gcmaf broadcasts and have seen the MHRA corrupt website, mhracorrupt.st, and will be writing letters. So, you know, that's 100,000 people seen it so far. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get somewhere.